We are specifically targeting the PTP1B gene in the brain. And that gene is responsible for multiple different ailments, colon cancer, breast cancer, and multiple other different ailments.
All right, welcome back inside our Proactive newsroom. Joining me now is Stephen Van Deventer. He is the chairman of PreveCeutical Medical. And Stephen, it's great to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, I know it's been a very busy time for you and the company, and you have a subsidiary company now, BioGene Therapeutics, and that's really what today's news is all about. And we'll get an update at PreveCeutical as well. But first, let's talk about BioGene. Tell me a bit about this new company.
So, when we first started PreveCeutical, we started 4 different research programs. And the reason why we did that was specifically because I was told by scientists, let's start 2, maybe 3, because not all of the R&D is successful. So we decided to be more aggressive and took up 4 programs. That then provided us another son of an issue that came along. All 4 have been successful in R&D. So we now theoretically have 4 different standalone companies. And so we have an R&D team that's basically specialists overall, but we now need to take these corporations and basically put them into a special purpose vehicle and retain specific scientists and people in those industries to advance them. Hence why the dual gene therapy and our diabetes and obesity program was put into an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, which is 100% wholly owned subsidiary of PreveCeutical. And we've retained new individuals that specialize in gene therapy space.
Okay, so tell me, BioGene is, you mentioned diabetes, obesity. That's what BioGene's main focus is working on?
Well, yes, to a certain degree, that's our first target, because we are specifically targeting the PTP1B gene in the brain. And that gene is responsible for multiple different ailments, colon cancer, breast cancer, and multiple other different ailments. However, our first target is diabetes and obesity in that gene. And the reason why we target that first, there's a much larger population around the world that require this treatment. And therefore, once we manage to get the proof of concept done and get it to commercialization, there's a very viable business plan for commercialization. Then we can start targeting the harder ailments with that are much more difficult. So we chose more of the lower hanging fruit of the PTP1B gene.
Okay. You mentioned staffing with a number of people that are movers and shakers, so to speak, in that particular industry. And sure enough, you have done that with a number of announcements over the last couple of weeks.
Yes, so if we look, we put together an extremely talented company. So in the board of directors, we have got Dr. Linnea Olofsson, who's got a lot of experience, and she's actually an independent director in PreveCeutical. And why we brought her in, she understands all the platform technologies that are on the basis of this company, so she can advance that part. But then we brought in Deepak, phenomenal industry individual, very well respected in this area. We brought Steve Glover in, who actually is now a combination of the science and business, because he's run NASDAQ companies. He was instrumental in selling a company to Johnson & Johnson for $2 to $3 billion. I can't remember which number it was. And then we brought in, very talented people on our scientific advisory board, like we brought in Barry Tisho. He's basically a chief medical officer, very well respected in the industry. We brought in Professor Marilla out of the University of Aberdeen in Scotland, and she's 25 years specifically working on diabetes and obesity, and very, very familiar with the PTP1B gene. And then, of course, in our corporate advisory board, we brought in people that have both science, political and business acumen, that understand how to marry the two. And then, very lastly, on our board of directors, we brought in Petrosky, who is in Washington, D.C., has a lot of political ties, has looking for unmet needs that the masses can qualify to use, rather than therapies that nobody can really afford, which gives us the political aspect on making sure that we align with the policies, the FDA, and et cetera. And then we brought in Maria as our president, and she's was with precision medicine at AstraZeneca. So we've got a really great field all the way across.
So obviously, we're nearing towards the end of 2024. What's ahead for 2025 for BioGene and also PreveCeutical?
Well, we intend to, with BioGene, do a funding once we receive our corporate valuation on the assets that are being transferred into BioGene. With that, will be giving us a pricing module that we can discuss with the investment bankers that we're in discussions with. And then with PreveCeutical, we had looked to advance potentially another SPV and moving out another asset and do the same thing, bringing specific people in that manner. So ultimately, we're looking at advancing the Sol-Gel program in PreveCeutical, advancing the diabetes and obesity in BioGene, and potentially another SPV with one of our other assets, which most likely will be our non-addictive analgesic.
All right, Stephen, thank you so much. Good to get an update on what's going on. I know it's super busy and I appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
Steve, thank you as always. Always great to be on the show.
All right, Stephen Van Deventer. He is the chairman of PreveCeutical.